Alright, hello Hannigan, or anyone else that is watching this video. This is my Great Depression review video. So I didn't do it in thieves order, but I do have all the thieves on here. I started out with income distribution. So the income distribution created a inequality, and most Americans were too poor to buy goods. Demand for goods dropped, and then the middle class lost savings and investments in the stock market. The effect of this is the demands for goods dropped, leading businesses to cut jobs and production um, because not as many people were buying all these goods. There wasn't enough money for people to buy their goods and wants that they would have bought in the past. The second one I talked about is easy credit, and I like to call this the banking crisis, because many people relied heavily on credit to buy things like stocks or homes or just like expensive things they want to buy, and the banks always allowed larger loans to people. The effect of this is that people lost money on their loans, and because banks failed, and financial panic. Like we talked about in class, there's pictures of people rushing to the banks to try to pull their money out, and people that were there too late. It was like, oops, sorry, but you get no money. Like that's just how it goes. Number three I want to talk about is farming. Um, the decline in farming overproduction led to crop prices going down. So many of these farmers were farming and making all this food, and then no one had the money to buy it. So it was all these crops just went cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And then farmers couldn't repay their loans for farming equipment. Like if they wanted to buy a new John Deere tractor, as if like we talked in class, they would take out a loan to buy that, but then they weren't able to pay that off, sadly. And then the effect is many farmers lost their jobs, and many had to migrate to the cities to try to find a job. And this overall just worsened agriculture. It was like a rural economic collapse. It's a good way to say it. For the stock market crash of, I think it was 1929. So excessive investments led to unstable stock prices and increases. Um, like people were buying these risky stocks, thinking they could make big money off of it, like big risk for big money. That's just what people thought, and that's one of the reasons that the stock market did crash. Like overconfidence in the stock market led to people borrowing money, buying on margin. We did that in the slideshows we made at the very beginning of the year. I remember in the stock market slideshow they talked about buying on margin, and how they would give just middle class everyday people enough money, like crazy numbers like 80-20%, to buy on margin. And that was another reason the stock market crashed. So the effect was a wave of panic set in, making investors lose fortunes, business capital loss, and led to bankruptcies and mass like people getting fired, because all these businesses lost all this money and they couldn't pay their employees, so they had to lay off a bunch of people. Next, number five, I talked about tariffs. And then I said, like, almost in parentheses, global economic panic. Because just like kind of what's happening in our world today, um, we don't know what's going to happen yet with the tariffs. We haven't had enough time to see. But our President Trump is doing kind of the same thing. The Tariffs Act, like the Howley Snoot that was in the presentation, I don't know if I'm saying that right, tariff, race taxed it on imported goods. So race tax is on imported goods. And then in snapback, other countries made their own tariffs, leading to like reduced global trade. Like if other countries around the world were like, if you're doing this, well, we're doing it too. So it overall reduced global trade, and the effect of this is U.S. businesses lost international customers and like trade partners, worsening jobs and like people losing their own jobs and factories closing. Yeah. And then for number six, I of course have Hoover's policies, his lack of government action. President Hoover believed in rugged individualism, like you can do it yourself, and he did not provide relief to people. He focused on supporting businesses rather than helping struggling workers, which, I mean, that, like, it was, I mean, as we saw how it turned out, it was not a good plan that Hoover had. He did not win his second, try to win his second presidency because of this was a big reason. And then the effect, it was like the confidence of the public fell. Like places like Hoovervilles were created, where it was literally made out of people's, like anything someone could find. That was their home, and they were called Hoovervilles, almost like a snapback to Hoover himself. And then the people lost faith in the government. They're like, whatever. If they're not helping us, I don't know if I should believe them. And it just overall like ruined the trust, and everything just went really downhill from there. Like I said, the lack that the government did, like the action they gave. And then I decided I would add this in, like the road going down on how it all happened. And then at the end is World War II, because unironically, how we got out of the Great Depression was the World War II, giving these young kids and many people, even women, jobs back again, paying them. And yeah, so thank you for listening.